Imagine stepping out your front door, never to be seen again. No goodbyes, no explanations, just silence where there once was life. Throughout history, there are stories of people vanishing without a trace. Some disappearances remain unexplained, leaving behind only questions, mysteries, and an unsettling feeling that the truth may be stranger than fiction. Today, we'll dive into three of the most chilling disappearances in history. Each case is a strange puzzle with no clear answers. From eerie journal entries to bizarre evidence left behind, these stories will leave you questioning the limits of human understanding. Stay tuned as we explore some of the creepiest mysteries of all time. Get comfortable, or maybe don't, because what we're about to uncover is not for the faint of heart. Let's begin. Case 1. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery. Our first story takes us to the lonely Flannan Isles, a small group of windswept islands off the west coast of Scotland. The year is 1900, and the Islandmore Lighthouse is manned by three lighthouse keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur. These men were no strangers to isolation, accustomed to the lonely life of lighthouse keepers, but something went terribly wrong. The Flannan Isles were often shrouded in mist, with harsh weather conditions that made their isolation even more intense. For the lighthouse keepers, this life was solitary but necessary. After all, their job was to ensure that ships passing through the treacherous waters knew where they were. But on December 26th, everything changed. A passing ship noticed that the lighthouse beacon was off, despite the fact that it was crucial for navigation during the winter months. This was a serious issue. A passing vessel reported that the beacon was out of service. This could have meant disaster if a ship was passing through those waters and couldn't navigate safely. When a relief team was sent to investigate, they arrived to find the lighthouse in perfect condition. The lamps were full of oil, the logbook was up to date, and the kitchen was set for a meal, but the men were nowhere to be found. The logbook, which had been carefully maintained by the keepers, revealed strange entries. On December 12th, Marshall wrote, "Storm still raging, pray for us." But according to weather reports, no storm had occurred around the time of this entry. Why did he mention a storm that didn't exist? Was he imagining things or warning of something more sinister? What's even more mysterious is the final log entry written on the day the men disappeared. It read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." These words hinted at a terrifying event, but no one knows what happened after that. The theory most commonly proposed is that the men were swept away by a freak wave while securing supplies in harsh weather. But others wonder if the men went mad from isolation, driven to some kind of violent confrontation. Some even suggest that the men's disappearance was the result of supernatural forces. The men had reportedly mentioned seeing strange lights in the sky before they vanished, leading to theories about alien abduction or ghostly apparitions. Others believe that a massive, unreported storm could have passed over the island, dragging the men out to sea or causing some kind of freak accident. But the calm state of the lighthouse, the meticulous log entries, the untouched kitchen, leaves many questioning this. The case of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse remains a haunting mystery, one that has intrigued people for over a century. Even today, the eerie isolation of the island continues to spark theories about what could have happened to the three men who vanished without a trace. Case 2. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. Our second case takes us to the freezing cold of the Ural Mountains in Russia, where 9 hikers set off on an expedition that would soon end in mystery. The year was 1959, and the group of experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, were aiming to reach the summit of Otorten. These hikers had prepared for the journey for months and were well versed in the dangers of the harsh mountain terrain. But what they encountered at Dyatlov Pass would haunt investigators for decades. The group consisted of young and skilled hikers who had tackled difficult routes before, but they never came back. Their journey, meant to be a routine expedition, turned into one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. When rescuers arrived after the group failed to return, they found the scene of the disaster. The hikers' tent had been cut open from the inside, suggesting that they were fleeing in a panic. The hikers were found scattered across the mountainside, some in only their underwear, others barefoot in the freezing cold. This in itself was strange. Why would they leave the safety of their tent in the dead of night, with temperatures dropping to below freezing? Upon further inspection, the bodies showed signs of mysterious injuries. Several of the hikers had broken ribs and skull fractures, while others had no visible external wounds. These injuries seemed more consistent with the type of trauma caused by an explosion or some sort of violent force. Yet there were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no weapons. Even more disturbing, some of the hikers' clothing was found to be radioactive. This finding led some to believe that the group had come into contact with some sort of radioactive material, possibly from a nearby military test site. Could they have unknowingly stumbled into a government experiment? Or perhaps it was something else entirely. The most widely accepted theory is that the group was caught in an avalanche, which forced them to cut open the tent and flee into the freezing night. But the nature of the injuries, particularly the internal trauma, has led many to question this explanation. Some argue that the group was victims of a secret military experiment, or that they encountered something far more sinister. What happened on that fateful night? Why were the hikers forced to flee their tent in the middle of the night, and what caused the horrific injuries? The Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to baffle investigators and conspiracy theorists to this day. 60 years later, the haunting questions surrounding this case continue to puzzle experts and fuel countless theories. Case 3. The Lost Colony of Roanoke. Now, let's take a step back in time to the late 1500s, before the United States existed, when the mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke unfolded. In 1587, a group of over 100 English settlers, led by John White, arrived on Roanoke Island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They hoped to establish a new colony in the New World, but their hopes would soon be dashed. The settlers faced unimaginable challenges from the very start. The land was unfamiliar, the resources were limited, and the relationship with the native tribes was tenuous. But they managed to build a small settlement, and Governor John White left the colony to return to England for supplies, hoping to bring back food and assistance. However, his trip was delayed by the outbreak of war between England and Spain, and White didn't return for 3 years. When White finally returned to Roanoke in 1590, he found the settlement completely abandoned. The houses were dismantled, not burned or destroyed. There were no signs of a struggle, just an eerie emptiness. The only clue left behind was a single word carved into a tree: CROATOAN. White had promised to meet the settlers at a prearranged location if they needed to relocate, but there were no signs of the settlers having gone to this place. The word CROATOAN referred to a nearby island and possibly to a local tribe, but it raised more questions than answers. Was this a clue or a mere coincidence? What could have happened to the colonists? One possibility is that the settlers were absorbed into the nearby CROATOAN tribe, as some reports suggested peaceful interactions with local indigenous groups. There's evidence that White's granddaughter, Virginia Dare, who was born on the island, may have been taken in by the tribe. Others theorize that they fell victim to disease, starvation, or hostile tribes. There are also more sinister theories. Some believe the colony was the victim of a curse, or that they were taken by a supernatural force. Some early settlers even spoke of strange omens, and some believe the colonists were abducted by extraterrestrials. It's possible they stumbled upon something beyond their comprehension. Despite archaeological digs and ongoing investigations, no definitive answers have emerged. The Lost Colony of Roanoke remains one of the most enduring and mysterious disappearances in early American history. Could there be some evidence hidden under layers of soil? Or did the settlers leave for an unknown destination, leaving only a cryptic message? Conclusion. And there you have it. 3 stories of disappearances that have defied explanation for generations. Whether caused by nature, human error, or something more mysterious, these cases remind us that there are still many secrets waiting to be uncovered. What do you think happened? Do you believe in logical explanations, or do you think something more sinister is at play?